My daughter whispered, "You didn't look under the table at our family dinner." And when I bent down, I found a piece of paper with BlueRaven2847 written in my mother's handwriting, Sophia's work password that she'd never shared with anyone. 6 months later, my parents would be in federal prison, my sister would lose her son forever, and our family would be completely destroyed. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the moment everything exploded. It was October 15th, 7:43 p.m. I remember the exact time because I was staring at the clock on my parents' antique mantel, counting down the minutes until I could politely escape another suffocating family dinner. That's when my daughter Sophia dropped her fork, and it clattered onto the Italian marble floor with a sound that seemed to echo through the entire house. Sophia ducked under the table to retrieve it, and when she came back up, her face had gone completely white. Not pale, white. Like she'd seen a ghost. Or worse, like she'd seen the truth. Her hands were trembling as she grabbed my wrist and whispered, "We need to leave, right now." I looked into her eyes and saw something I'd never seen before, pure terror mixed with rage. "What happened?" I whispered back. She glanced toward my parents, who were busy arguing with my sister Madison about her latest court hearing, then leaned closer to my ear. "Check under the table leg, near Dad's chair." I bent down and found it, a small piece of paper, folded and hidden. When I opened it, my world tilted off its axis. Written in my mother's unmistakable handwriting were the words, "BlueRaven2847, Sophia's work password." The password she'd never written down, never shared with anyone, never even said out loud. But here's what makes this story truly insane. This wasn't just about a stolen password. This was the culmination of a 24-year psychological manipulation campaign that started the day Sophia was born. Let me take you back to understand how deep this rabbit hole goes. I'm Hallie. I'm 47 years old, and I've spent most of my life being the family scapegoat while my sister Madison played the role of the golden child. But Madison wasn't just spoiled. She was dangerous. And I have the scars to prove it. When I was 8 and Madison was 4, she pushed me into our backyard fire pit during a family barbecue. I still have burn scars on my left arm from where I caught myself on the hot metal ring. My parents' reaction? It was an accident. Madison didn't understand how dangerous fire could be. But I saw her face right before she pushed me. She was smiling. When I was 12, Madison told our parents that I'd been stealing money from Mom's purse. It wasn't true, but they believed her instantly. I was grounded for 2 months and forced to do extra chores to earn back their trust. Years later, during one of Madison's rare, honest moments as a teenager, she admitted she'd made the whole thing up because she was jealous that I'd gotten a better grade on a science project. The worst incident happened when I was 15. Madison, now 11, had been increasingly violent toward me whenever our parents weren't around. She would pinch me, bite me, hit me with whatever was handy. One day, she came at me with a kitchen knife, claiming she was just playing, but the look in her eyes was anything but playful. I managed to get the knife away from her, but in the struggle, she got a small cut on her hand. When our parents came home and saw the blood, Madison immediately burst into tears and told them I'd attacked her with the knife. They didn't even let me explain. I was sent to live with my aunt for the rest of the summer. And when I came back, they enrolled me in anger management classes. Madison got a new bike and a shopping trip to make her feel safe again. That's when I realized something that would haunt me for decades. My parents weren't just enabling Madison's behavior, they were actively participating in rewriting reality to protect her. Truth didn't matter. Evidence didn't matter. Madison's version of events was always accepted without question, while my voice was systematically silenced. Fast forward to our adult lives, and this pattern had only intensified. When Madison married Ryan Chen, a brilliant software engineer. At 28, our parents threw her a $65,000 wedding that was featured in the local society pages. They paid for everything: the venue, the dress, the honeymoon to Bali. When I married my husband David 2 years later, they gave us $1,500 and complained about the cost of their outfits. When Madison got pregnant with her son Tyler, our parents immediately converted their entire basement into a luxury nursery, complete with a crib that cost more than my first car. They bought stock in baby companies, created college savings accounts, and started planning Tyler's future before he was even born. When Sophia was born 4 years later, they sent a generic congratulations card and visited once in the first month. But here's where the story gets truly twisted. Madison was abusing Ryan from almost the beginning of their marriage, and I knew it. I'll never forget the Christmas dinner when Tyler was 3. Madison was in one of her moods because Ryan had forgotten to bring the wine she'd specifically requested. She started screaming at him in front of the entire family, calling him worthless, stupid, a failure as a husband and father. Then she threw her full wine glass at his head. Ryan dodged, and the glass shattered against the wall, sending red wine and glass shards everywhere. Our parents' reaction? Madison's just passionate. That's what we love about her. They made Ryan clean up the mess while Madison was comforted and told she had every right to be upset. I saw the bruises on Ryan's arms that day. I saw the way Tyler flinched every time his mother raised her voice. I saw the exhaustion in Ryan's eyes, the way he'd learned to move carefully around Madison, always anticipating her next explosion. But when I tried to talk to our parents about it privately, they accused me of being jealous and trying to sabotage Madison's happiness. The abuse escalated over the years. Madison would hit Ryan with household objects, kitchen utensils, books, even Tyler's toys. She would lock him out of the house in the middle of winter. She would threaten to hurt herself or Tyler if Ryan ever tried to leave. She had him convinced that no one would believe him, that everyone saw him as the problem in their marriage. And she was right. At least about our family. Our parents refused to see it, even when the evidence was right in front of them. They explained away every incident, excused every outburst, and somehow always found a way to make Ryan the villain in Madison's victim story. The breaking point came last February. Ryan finally gathered enough evidence, photos, audio recordings, medical records, witness statements, to file for divorce and get an emergency restraining order. He left in the middle of the night with Tyler and didn't look back. The evidence he presented to the court was devastating. Hospital records showing that he'd been treated for accidental injuries 17 times in 8 years. Audio recordings of Madison threatening to kill him and Tyler if he ever left. Security camera footage from their neighbor's house showing Madison attacking Ryan with a baseball bat in their driveway. Most damning of all, he had recordings of Tyler talking to a child psychologist, describing in heartbreaking detail how mommy hurts daddy and then cries and says she's sorry. But instead of accepting that Madison had serious problems and needed help, our parents doubled down. They hired her the most expensive divorce attorney in the state, a man known for destroying opposing parties in custody battles. They moved Madison back into their house, converted their home office into a war room complete with whiteboards, legal documents, and conspiracy theories about how Ryan was somehow orchestrating an elaborate frame job. They spent over $150,000 in the first 6 months alone. Private investigators, expert witnesses, character assassination specialists. They pulled out every stop to try to get Tyler back. They even hired a company that specialized in discrediting domestic abuse victims, trying to prove that Ryan had somehow inflicted his own injuries. Madison became completely obsessed. She would spend 18 hours a day researching Ryan's life, his friends, his family, his coworkers, looking for any ammunition she could use against him. She violated the restraining order 6 times, showing up at Tyler's school, his daycare, even following Ryan to work. Each violation resulted in fines and brief jail stays, but our parents would bail her out immediately and hire more lawyers to fight the charges. During this time, they started taking an unusual interest in Sophia's career. My daughter had just started working at Blackstone and Associates, one of the most prestigious family law firms in New York City. She specialized in high-stakes custody cases, domestic abuse situations, and child protection services, exactly the kind of work that was now dominating Madison's life. Suddenly, my parents wanted to know everything about Sophia's job. What cases was she working on? How did the legal system really work? What kind of information could lawyers access? They started inviting her over constantly, setting up a beautiful home office in their spare room, encouraging her to work from their house whenever possible. Sophia was thrilled. She'd always felt like the forgotten grandchild, overshadowed by Tyler and overlooked by grandparents who seemed to prefer Madison's dramatic parenting style over my more reserved approach. Finally, they were showing her the attention and interest she'd always craved. She started working from their house 3 or 4 days a week. They would make her elaborate lunches, bring her gourmet coffee, and generally treat her like a queen. They asked detailed questions about her cases, her clients, her access to legal databases. They were so interested, so supportive, so proud of their granddaughter's important work. Looking back now, I can see how calculated it all was, how they slowly built trust, gathered information, and positioned themselves to strike. They weren't proud grandparents. They were predators. And Sophia was their target. But I didn't see it then. I was just happy that my daughter was finally getting the love and attention from her grandparents that she deserved. I thought maybe they were finally growing as people, finally learning to show affection to someone other than Madison and Tyler. I was so wrong. The trap they were setting was more elaborate and more devastating than anything I could have imagined. And on that October evening, when Sophia found that piece of paper under the table, the trap finally snapped shut. Not just on her, but on all of us. The car ride home that night was the longest 20 minutes of my life. Sophia sat clutching that piece of paper with BlueRaven2847 written in my mother's handwriting, her work password that she'd never shared with anyone. "Mom," she whispered, "they've been watching me type my password for months. Every time I worked at their house, they were memorizing my keystrokes. They probably have cameras in that office they made for me." My blood ran cold. Cameras? Grandpa installed Ring cameras everywhere last year for safety, but I bet he has hidden cameras inside too. They've been recording everything. My client calls, my computer screen, My passwords. When we got home, Sophia immediately checked her work portal's system logs. What she found made her gasp out loud. Someone accessed Ryan Chen's case file from my account yesterday at 2:47 p.m. That was exactly when Grandma took me to that Italian restaurant. They kept me out for 3 hours. I thought they were just being nice. She scrolled through more data, her face getting paler. They downloaded everything: Ryan's home address, Tyler's school information, his therapy records, even his new girlfriend's background check. Mom, this is identity theft, corporate espionage, and federal crimes. But the truly insidious part? This had been going on for 8 months. 8 months of carefully orchestrated manipulation. Let me tell you about that lunch that changed everything. My mother had called Sophia that Thursday morning, gushing about this authentic Italian restaurant. The kind of place your grandfather and I went on our honeymoon. We simply must try it together. What Sophia didn't know was that my father had spent the previous week researching her habits. He knew she always left her laptop open when stepping away. She trusted them completely. He knew she used the bathroom exactly 15 minutes into any meal, and he knew my mother could keep her distracted for hours. While they shared breadsticks and talked about Sophia's future, my father was systematically downloading every piece of information they could use. He accessed the court's electronic filing system using Sophia's credentials, downloaded sealed documents, even accessed Child Protective Services databases. The most chilling part? He documented everything. My father, the methodical engineer, kept detailed spreadsheets of what he'd accessed, when, and how it could be used. This wasn't a desperate mistake. This was a calculated criminal operation. The plan was brilliant. Madison would stay one step ahead of Ryan's legal team, knowing his strategy before his lawyer did. If questioned, she could claim she'd hired private investigators. The perfect crime. Except they underestimated Sophia. My daughter understood legal databases and digital forensics better than they realized. She didn't just look at what was accessed, she looked at how. Mom, look, she said, pointing to timestamps. My account was active yesterday from 2:47 p.m. to 5:23 p.m., but I have credit card receipts and Instagram selfies proving I was at lunch during that entire time. She showed me the evidence, photos with my parents at exactly 3:15 p.m., the same time someone was accessing confidential files from her computer. But here's the really sick part. They didn't just access Ryan's files. They accessed 12 other cases I'm working on: domestic abuse cases, child custody battles. They have home addresses of women hiding from violent ex-husbands. They have therapy records of abused children. I felt like I was going to be sick. My parents had access to information that could get vulnerable people killed, all to help Madison, who had never faced real consequences for anything. While Sophia was discovering this digital evidence, Madison was already using the stolen information. That same day, she showed up at Ryan's new apartment complex, an address that was supposed to be confidential. Ryan was bringing Tyler home from school when he saw Madison's car. She'd been waiting for hours. When Tyler saw his mother, he started crying and hid behind his father. This 8-year-old child was terrified of his own mother. Security cameras captured what happened next. Madison seemed calm initially, saying she just wanted to talk, that she'd been getting help. But when Ryan explained she was violating the restraining order, Madison snapped. She lunged at Ryan, trying to grab Tyler. When Ryan stepped back to protect his son, Madison started screaming that he was kidnapping her child. Neighbors came out. Tyler was sobbing, clinging to his father, begging his mother to stop yelling. Police arrived within minutes. Madison was arrested for violating the restraining order, but not before traumatizing her son. Bail was set at $15,000, significantly higher than previous violations. My parents posted it that same evening, bringing Madison home like a returning hero. That night, Sophia made the most difficult decision of her life. She called her supervisor and reported the security breach, explaining everything: the stolen password, the accessed files, the timeline proving her innocence. The law firm's response was swift. They launched a formal investigation, brought in cybersecurity experts, and notified law enforcement. They placed Sophia on administrative leave, not from suspicion, but because she was now a witness in a federal crime investigation. Sophia was devastated. This was her dream job, the career she'd worked toward her entire life. She'd graduated summa cum laude, passed the bar on her first try, competed against hundreds for her position at Blackstone and Associates. What if they don't believe me? She asked through tears. What if I lose my law license before my career even begins? But Sophia is stronger than I realized. The next morning, she hired one of the best cybercrime attorneys in the state and went to war. She documented everything: texts from my parents, photos from their lunches, instances where they encouraged her to work from their house. Then she did something requiring incredible courage. She secretly recorded a phone conversation with my mother. Sophia called pretending to be confused about the breach, asking if my mother had noticed anything unusual. My mother's response was predictable. We would never touch your computer. We don't understand technology. Maybe someone at your office is jealous. But when Sophia mentioned the breach happened during their lunch, my mother made a fatal mistake. Your grandfather did mention your computer screen was still on when we got back. He thought about turning it off, but didn't want to lose your work. A stupid, obvious lie contradicting everything she'd just said. But more importantly, it was admission that my father had been alone with Sophia's computer for hours and noticed it was logged into work systems. Sophia had her smoking gun. Her attorney immediately shared the recording with the law firm and the FBI because accessing confidential legal databases without authorization is a federal crime, especially when endangering domestic abuse victims. The investigation moved quickly. Federal agents obtained search warrants for my parents' house, computers, phones, and financial records. What they found was worse than imagined. My father had been stealing information systematically for months, creating elaborate folders organized by case type and usefulness to Madison's situation. He had research notes about legal strategies, contact information for opposing attorneys, even personal details about judges. The most damning evidence was emails between my parents and Madison discussing how to use stolen information. They weren't passive recipients. They were active conspirators in a criminal enterprise. In one email, my father wrote, "The Ryan situation is more complex than we thought. Based on S's files, he has a much stronger case than M realizes." Most chilling was Madison's response. "Thank you for everything you're doing to help me get Tyler back. I know this is risky, but he's my son, and I'll do whatever it takes. S will understand when she has children." They were planning to sacrifice Sophia's career and freedom to help Madison, genuinely believing they were justified. Family loyalty meant protecting Madison at any cost, even destroying their granddaughter's life. The investigation also uncovered that they had been researching Sophia's personal life, bank records, credit reports, social media, dating history. This wasn't just work information theft. They had systematically violated every aspect of Sophia's privacy, turning her into a tool for their criminal enterprise. Sophia's law firm realized this wasn't just a security breach. It was an attack on the legal system's integrity. They made a decision that saved Sophia's career. They went public. In a press release, they explained that one of their attorneys had been victim of a sophisticated family-based cyber attack, that the attorney immediately reported it and cooperated fully, and that they were implementing new security measures. The legal community rallied around Sophia. Other attorneys shared similar family manipulation stories. Legal blogs wrote about protecting client confidentiality from trusted family members. Sophia went from potential criminal to victim and hero. She'd done everything right, noticed the breach, investigated thoroughly, reported immediately, cooperated with law enforcement. She'd sacrificed her relationship with grandparents to protect clients and preserve legal system integrity. But the cost was enormous. Sophia didn't just lose her grandparents. She lost faith in family, her sense of safety, and belief that people who love you have your best interests at heart. The night before my parents' arrest, we sat in our kitchen discussing what came next. She looked older, like she'd aged years in weeks. "Mom, I keep thinking about all those questions about my work. I thought they were supportive grandparents interested in my career, but they were gathering intelligence the whole time." She paused, staring at her hands. How do you trust anyone again? How do you know when someone loves you versus what you can do for them? I held her hand and promised we'd get through this together, that we'd build a new family definition based on genuine love rather than manipulation. But first, we had to face the reckoning coming for my parents and Madison. The FBI investigation was just the beginning. The FBI investigation culminated at dawn. 6 black SUVs rolling up to my parents' pristine suburban driveway at exactly 5:47 a.m. Like something out of a movie. Except this wasn't fiction. This was the moment my family's house of lies finally collapsed. Sophia and I were awake, waiting. We'd gotten the call from her attorney at 5:30 a.m. "The arrests are happening today." We sat in our kitchen with coffee we couldn't drink, knowing that within hours our family would be splashed across every headline in the state. The footage from my parents' security cameras, the same cameras they'd used to spy on Sophia, would later be played in court. My father answering the door in his bathrobe, his face going white as he read the search warrants. My mother screaming, "This is a mistake! We haven't done anything wrong!" Madison appearing at the stairs, her face a mask of pure rage. But here's what the cameras didn't capture: the moment my father realized his methodical documentation had become the rope that would hang them all. The FBI didn't just find stolen files, they found everything. My father's obsessive record-keeping had created a perfect roadmap to their criminal enterprise. Spreadsheets tracking accessed files, email chains discussing strategy, even a calendar marking Sophia lunch days, with notes about information-gathering opportunities. The most damning evidence? A handwritten journal documenting every piece of stolen information and how it could help Madison. One entry, dated 3 days before arrest, read, "S's latest case files show vulnerability in Ryan's custody arrangement. M should file motion immediately." They weren't just stealing information, They were weaponizing it against an abuse victim and his traumatized child. The federal charges were devastating: conspiracy to commit computer fraud, identity theft, wire fraud, obstruction of justice, and violation of attorney-client privilege. Tyler's name appeared in their files dozens of times, along with his school schedule, therapy appointments, and detailed notes about his weaknesses for court exploitation. Madison's arrest was equally spectacular. Federal agents surrounded her at the gym while she was on the treadmill. The security footage, which went viral within hours, showed her screaming that this was Ryan's fault, that he'd corrupted the system to frame her. Even while being read Miranda rights, she yelled about how Tyler needed his mother. The bail hearing was a circus. The judge set bail at $500,000 each for my parents and $750,000 for Madison, citing flight risk and the systematic nature of the criminal enterprise. My parents liquidated retirement accounts and took a second mortgage to make bail. Madison remained in jail 3 days before a bail bondsman agreed to the risk. When she emerged, she looked smaller, like prison had stripped away her manufactured confidence. That's when the media feeding frenzy began. The story had everything: family betrayal, corporate espionage, domestic abuse, and a young lawyer choosing justice over family loyalty. Headlines were brutal. Grandparents from Hell: How a Family Destroyed Their Granddaughter's Career to Help Abusive Daughter. The Password Conspiracy: When Family Love Goes Criminal. FBI uncovers multi-million-dollar legal information theft ring. But the story that captured national attention was about Tyler. Ryan's attorney released a statement that made me cry. Tyler Chen, age 8, has been living in fear most of his life, thanks to one attorney who chose justice over family loyalty. Tyler can finally feel safe. The defendants plan to use a child's therapy sessions as weapons. This isn't family loyalty. This is child endangerment. The psychological evaluation was heartbreaking. This 8-year-old suffered from nightmares, anxiety attacks, and hypervigilance, constantly watching for signs his mother might explode into violence. The stolen therapy records showed Tyler had told his counselor he wished his mother would go away forever so he and Daddy could be safe. Madison and my parents planned to use this statement, a traumatized child's cry for safety, to argue Ryan was alienating Tyler against his mother. When this became public, the backlash was swift and merciless. Child advocacy groups held rallies outside the courthouse. Madison's social media accounts were flooded with comments from abuse survivors sharing their stories. What the FBI found next was even worse than we imagined. My father had been selling information to other people going through contentious divorces. He'd created an underground network of bitter ex-spouses, sharing stolen legal strategies and even therapy records of children. The FBI traced payments totaling over $85,000 into hidden bank accounts. This was a profitable criminal enterprise that had endangered dozens of abuse victims and their children. Every case file was reviewed. Every victim was contacted. Every child was offered additional protection services. The ripple effects were enormous. 3 other law firms discovered security breaches matching my parents' methods. A federal task force was created to investigate family-based corporate espionage. Congress held hearings about protecting legal databases from insider threats. Sophia became the face of these reforms. Her congressional testimony was devastating. My grandparents didn't just steal my password. They stole the safety and privacy of dozens of abuse victims. They turned my love and trust into weapons against people who desperately needed legal protection. The trial was scheduled for 8 months later, but faced with overwhelming evidence and federal charges carrying potential 25-year sentences, my parents and Madison accepted plea deals. My father received 12 years in federal prison and was ordered to pay $2.3 million in restitution. My mother received 8 years and $1.8 million restitution. Madison, whose use of stolen information to stalk Ryan added charges, received 15 years and lost all parental rights to Tyler permanently. The restitution payments meant my parents lost everything: their house, savings, retirement accounts, even my mother's jewelry. The family home where Sophia had worked in that carefully constructed office was sold to pay legal fees and victim compensation. The most devastating consequence was the complete destruction of Tyler's relationship with his grandparents. Court records showed my parents had been willing to traumatize their own great-grandson to help their daughter avoid abuse consequences. Tyler's new therapist recommended no contact with Madison's family for the foreseeable future. Ryan moved across the country with Tyler, changing their names and starting over completely. The last update I received was that Tyler was doing well in therapy and had started sleeping through the night for the first time in years. As for Sophia, she not only kept her job, she was promoted. Blackstone and Associates made her a senior associate 2 years early and put her in charge of cybersecurity protocols. She became a nationally recognized expert on protecting legal databases and has spoken at conferences worldwide. The personal cost was enormous. Sophia didn't speak to me for 6 months after the trial. Not because she blamed me, but because she needed time to process that the people who should have protected her had tried to destroy her. When we finally reconciled, she said something that still haunts me. "Mom, I understand why you didn't see it coming, but what I can't understand is how they could look at Tyler, a little boy they claimed to love, and decide that helping his abuser was more important than keeping him safe." The psychological evaluations during sentencing revealed my parents genuinely believed they were doing right. They'd convinced themselves Madison was the victim, that Tyler would be better off with his real mother regardless of abuse. They'd created an alternate reality where protecting Madison justified any cruelty to anyone else, including their own great-grandson. The family business built on lies and manipulation finally collapsed. But the damage was permanent. Madison will likely serve most of her 15-year sentence. Her disruptive prison behavior cost her all early release opportunities. My parents, now in their 70s, will probably die in federal prison. I had to confront that I'd enabled this dysfunction for decades. Every time I'd stayed silent when Madison abused me as a child. Every family dinner I'd attended despite seeing Ryan's bruises. Every moment I'd chosen peace over protecting vulnerable family members. I'd contributed to creating conditions that made this possible. I started therapy 6 months after the trial. It took 2 years to understand that my childhood survival strategy, staying invisible, avoiding conflict, never challenging the family narrative, had prevented me from protecting my own daughter when she needed it most. Today, 3 years later, Sophia and I have built a new relationship based on truth instead of toxic family loyalty that nearly destroyed her life. We talk regularly, but never discuss my parents or Madison. That chapter is closed forever. The most important lesson I learned is that family loyalty shouldn't require ignoring abuse. enabling criminal behavior, or sacrificing innocent people to protect dysfunction. Real love means standing up for what's right, even when it's hard, even when it costs everything you thought you wanted. Sophia taught me that. At 24, she had courage to sacrifice her relationship with grandparents to protect strangers she'd never met. She chose justice over family loyalty, truth over comfort, and vulnerable people's safety over her own emotional needs. She's the hero of this story. For the first time in my life, I'm proud to be her mother, not because of what I taught her, but because of what she taught me about real courage and genuine love. If you recognize your own family in this story, if you see patterns of enabling, protection of abusers, silencing of victims, please don't wait for a federal investigation to force action. Speak up. Choose the vulnerable over the powerful. Choose truth over family loyalty. Because sometimes saving your family means destroying it first.